You're listening to the winning literary show, Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio, live with host Denise Turney, author of the books Long Walk Up, Portia, Love Pour Over Me, Spiral, Love Has Many Faces, and Rosetta's Great Hope. Turn up your dial and get ready for a blast of feature author interviews, 411 on book festivals, writing conferences, and so much more. Ready? Let's go.
Good morning out there in Blog Talk Radio, Rainbow Soul Off the Shelf, iTunes, wherever you're connecting to Off the Shelf. I want to wish you a happy, blessed Saturday, March the 24th, and you absolutely are listening to the Winning Book Radio Show, Off the Shelf. Before I introduce you to today's guest, I just want to leave this thought with you, and it's from Winston Churchill. The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. And again, I welcome you, especially to our loyal listeners who've been with us for 15 years, and those who are just stopping by. So happy to have you here with us this morning on Off the Shelf. And we do have and this is an on-time guest here coming on this morning with all that's going on in the world. Could we not use to shift our thoughts into the better parts of us so we can produce and create and receive blessings and start to receive more good that is rightfully ours? But before I introduce to you today's guest, I keep asking you guys, how good of a mystery sleuth are you? Are you good at figuring things out? Because in Love Pour Over Me, there's a lot to figure out. Not only is there something that the one of the major stars of the story, Raymond Clark, he is an outstanding middle distance runner. He's on his way to the Olympics, and he's also very talented academically. But he's raised by a single parent, a father, who stayed when his mother left when he was only 2, at a time when men were not doing that. That's more common today, although women still do it a whole lot more. But back then it was unheard of. But his father had untreated alcoholism, so he's growing up in this home with a man who loved him enough to not leave, but he has this sickness, and he's mean. I mean, the readers do not like the father at the start of the story at all. So Raymond's coming up with this, and he's talented, and he's gifted, and he's a very loving person, but he's got issues now to deal with thanks to his dad. He goes off to college, and he witnesses something. And this is what I was asking if you're a good mystery sleuth. He witnesses something that he seemingly has nothing to do with. I mean, he just got to school. But if you read this story, you'll see how it starts to pull him in. And then he meets Brenda, who is his true soulmate, the love of his life. But how has his relationship growing up impacted his ability to even relate with Brenda? And then there are these 4 friends. And back to the mystery. Is one of the friends involved in the mystery? Is that how he gets pulled into this? If you value relationships, and I mean really, truly value what the blessings they open us up to. They can also drag us down, but the blessings they open us up to. And you like a good mystery, I would stop what I'm doing and get a copy of Love Pour Over Me right now. It's an ebook or in print format. Please get a copy. Treat yourself while you may be quarantined at home, and let me know how you enjoy Love Pour Over Me. And now let us go and meet our very special off-the-shelf guest. And our special guest this morning is Craig Kolvavo. And if I'm saying his name right, I hope he corrects me. Craig is the co-founder of AwesOM Life, a program that he started with his wife, Amy. He loves the outdoors and is an environmental conscious consumer. He works with water.org, and this is an organization founded 25 years ago by actor Matt Damon and Gary White to bring safe water and sanitation solutions to global communities. It might not seem that we need that so much around the world when you're in the United States, but oh my goodness, is there a need for that? And just what Michigan went through, Flint, people see just how important it is to have safe, clean water. So we thank him for his work. And Craig is also the author of the book, I Am God in Disguise, So Are You. Please visit Craig online at AwesOMLife.com, AwesOMLife.com. AwesOMLife.com. We are honored to have Craig with us here this morning. I hope I'm picking up the right line. Good morning, Craig.
Denise, how are you? Do you hear me
I'm doing
clearly?
good. I hope I'm getting the right line. Good morning. So happy to have you here with us this morning, and what a perfect time to have you on to share your message with our listeners this morning, Craig. The first few questions I'm going to ask you, I ask every guest who comes on the show, just so our listeners can get a little backstory on our guests before I go right into the questions. So to kick it off, Craig, could you please tell off-the-shelf listeners where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up?
Oh, sure. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me and allowing me to come on your show and share a little bit of my message with your audience. I greatly appreciate that. And I heard on your intro you said 15 years. Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area, and as soon as I was old enough to leave, everything in my car and headed south because I hate the cold weather. So anyone who's spent any time in the Windy City knows that those winters can be brutal. So when I graduated from college, I packed everything I owned into my little Ford Escort, and I had a road atlas in my lap, and I just told my parents that I was heading south and I was going to call them when I got there, and that's kind of how my journey into my adult life began.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh! You didn't. Did you have any? What an adventurer! I am. You know what I hear about college students? Before they get married, before they have kids, they're going to go out and travel to different countries, and they just pick up and go. I really, really applaud you for that. Did you have any place in mind, or you just took off driving, heading south?
I did. I swear I was just heading for warmer weather, and ironic. It's funny. You can do this when you're that age because most of us don't have any responsibilities. Most people who are just graduating from college aren't married or don't have kids yet. I was lucky that I had a few $1,000s in my pocket, graduation gifts and money from friends and family and relatives. So yeah. If you look at a road map, it's funny. If you look at an atlas, due south of Chicago, if you drive south and just keep going, you're going to dead end into the Gulf of Mexico. And that's what I did. I hit Galveston, Texas. I quickly decided I didn't want to live on an island, so I backed it up about 20, 30 miles to Houston. And I went into this little cantina, this little Mexican taco joint, and I sat at the bar and ordered some tacos, and I was looking at the newspaper at job classified ads, and this is how the universe works, Denise. The bartender came up to me and he started talking, and he asked me, where I was headed, and I told him I was probably gonna land in Houston. And he said, well, my roommate just moved out. He said, I have a really nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse. He said, when were you thinking about moving? And I laughed and I said, well, all my crap is out in my car. And after he got off work, I went and looked at his townhouse and I moved in.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. And no surprise that you have gotten to where you are today? As a kid, what did you want to be when you were a kid, when you grew up? What did you dream of being?
Well, my dad was a State Farm insurance agent my whole life. Actually, he still is. He's 84 years old right now, and he's still has his State Farm agency. So I don't know. I guess as all little kids, I probably looked up to my dad and just assumed I would follow in his footsteps. The universe had different plans for me. I just kind of followed my intuition and got pulled in some different directions.
Now, were you raised to be environmentally conscious when you were a child? If not, what put you on this particular path?
No, I really truly wasn't. It wasn't until I discovered and kind of got more onto my spiritual path and, became more awakened, that I kind of, looked around at the world and realized, hey, you know what, we've only got one planet, and if we don't start taking care of it, it's kind of weird. I've been asked before, Denise, when did I begin my spiritual path? Well, I believe we're all born on our spiritual path, and really probably the real question would be, when do you become aware of your spiritual path? And I was about 30 years old, and so I don't know if that's, I don't know if there's any average, time or age where people start to become more aware. But when, once you discover your divine nature and you start to become more connected to those around you and to your planet, then you'll start to really appreciate things more. And, just the idea of, poisoning the Mother Earth, it soon becomes an absurd notion. And that's really one of the reasons I wrote the book. I look around at the world, and I'm sure that you would agree, and hopefully the listeners would agree. If you turn on the nightly news or look in the newspaper, we need more awakened beings on this planet now. And although I'm optimistic, I do feel a sense of urgency. We see turmoil, whether it's, the political environment we're living in or just the chaos going on worldwide. And I really, really believe that if more people can just turn their sights inward and become a little more aware, a little more awakened, miracles can start to happen, and I think the world can change.
You know what? I wanted to ask you this, because when I talk to people, and appreciate what you've shared and what you're going to share, Craig, but when I talk to people, this is something, when I'm at a worship center, I see this all around me. This is almost a magical thinking that I think a lot of us fall up under, and I don't know where this comes from. But how do we move beyond the magical thinking that the environment, our relationships, communities, some people are that way with their money or their health. It's just this magical thinking that things will just magically take care of themselves. And no matter what I do, it's just gonna magically. I mean, faith and trust are different, but this magical thinking that I can eat anything and it will produce no negative effect. I can litter, I can do whatever, and this earth will just stay. It'll just stay fine. This magical thinking. I don't know where it comes from, but how can we move away from that?
Right. Well, I believe, and I totally understand what you're saying, because during our early development, and again, I can't put an age on this, saying, well, by the time you're 27, it doesn't work like that. But during some of the first stages of our development in life, and I kind of outline, 6 different stages that in hindsight, I see that we go through during the unconscious stages of life when we're really unaware that the spiritual path even exists. We go through the school of life, and the school of life can be brutal. And during this phase is when we think, like you just said, we think there's no negative, ramifications to our actions. We litter, we pollute, and that includes not only our external world, but ourselves, our bodies. And, we can eat crap food, we can smoke cigarettes, we can, I was a mess when I was young. I was using and abusing drugs and alcohol. So the school of life in a mystical sense, Denise, pain in a way is good because it leads us, it's kind of a guidepost. I believe that all pain and suffering that we see in the external world and that we feel internally is caused by our disconnection, our disconnection from the divine part of our nature. And as long as we're unaware and we're disconnected from that part of ourselves, we're going to kind of be bumping along through the world. And, I mentioned the school of life, the school of life every single day is going to be giving us lessons and tests. And again, like any school, if we ignore our lessons and we don't look for the meaning and we don't look for the wisdom in the lessons, the tests are going to become more and more difficult and more and more and they become more painful. I mean, the universe is really a friendly, loving place, and it wants us all to succeed. So in the beginning, these lessons are very, very gentle. We might get just a little gentle poke from the universe and that tells us, hey, look, you're going the wrong way. We have a painful experience. All right, you're going the wrong way. You better start being more aware. But if you're like me, if you're one of the stubborn ones, you have a high level of pain tolerance. Life keeps like serving up harder and harder and harder lessons until eventually, Denise, it's like getting hit over the head with a club. And then finally, we find ourselves sick or with some kind of disease or ailment or maybe we're obese or we're, whatever you talk about, poor diet or poor eating habits. And eventually we wake up and say, hey, I got to start taking care of myself. Or we look around the planet and we hear, global warming and, we watch on the news, how temperatures are rising and the world is changing and we think, what, it's time to start making changes. So that's what I think happens. I think during these unconscious stages of life, we get directed, and the universe is really, really trying hard to serve us lessons and show us what direction to go in. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and so we do learn that we have a role to play in this magical thinking. That it's just going to work out. I remember when I was a kid, I threw some trash. I was riding in the car with my paternal grandparents, and I threw some garbage out the door. And my grandparents were like, what did you do that for? And who do you think is going to pick that up? And I said, well, the people who clean. They said, no, don't ever do that again. Who do you think is supposed to pick it up? So just this thinking of it'll be taken care of instead of I guess, I don't know if it's a lack of feeling our own power that, no, you do it. You do it. You see something that needs to be done, you do it. Can you share with us a synopsis for I Am God in Disguise, So Are You? For our listeners who this is their very first time hearing of the book, I Am God in Disguise, So Are You, can you just tell them, give them a brief overview of what the book is about?
Sure. if I can, I'd like to first just touch on the title briefly. I think every author, deep down wants their book title or their book cover to be bold or to be eye-catching. And I'm a little bit surprised on occasion when I hear my book title being described as being controversial. And it's not a whole lot, but occasionally, I've been on some radio and some TV shows where people have, asked me if I've gotten a lot of pushback because of the controversial title. And Denise, really this message that we are all gods, it's not exactly a New Age message. I have found these teachings in the Hindu scriptures, which are thousands of years old, in Buddhism, and even in the Bible. I've had some of my readers email me recently, and I'll be honest, I'm not the most religious guy there is, so I'm kind of excited when people email me this kind of stuff. I've got a couple of Bible quotes I want to share with you just real quick. This is one of my favorites. A reader sent me just maybe a month ago. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. The words I say, I do not speak of my own authority. Rather, it's the Father living in me, doing his work. Whoever believes in me will also do the work that I am doing. Boy, if that doesn't say I am God in disguise, so are you, I don't know what does. So my point is, this should not be controversial. If anyone is turned off, by the book title, I promise you, this is not, these teachings go way back, and it might help if I explain how I define God, just briefly. I see God as my life force, more or less a vibrating energy that animates every cell in my body. And Denise, this energy not only flows through me, it flows through all of creation. I see this energy as what connects us all. And people will ask, well then, if that's God, what's the soul? So I see soul is our individual reflection of that energy. If you saw God as being this big, huge, all-encompassing ocean of energy, and we take like an eyedropper full of that ocean water, and we deposit that water into every single newborn baby, that is the soul. And to carry that metaphor, a little bit further, when these bodies grow old and wear out and reach the end of their physical lifetime, and that'll happen to all of us, as we learn in physics, energy can never be destroyed. So those drops of water that I talk about, they just change form. So when these bodies perish and their time is done on this earth, that energy will be evaporated, more or less returns to source. And when it rains, the way I like to look at it, when it rains, it returns back to the ocean. So I don't know. That's the way I see God, and that's my definition of God and energy. So when I say I am God in disguise, that's the God I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the old-fashioned, Old Testament God that's, sitting in a throne up in the sky somewhere, who's an external, judgmental God. So I just wanted to make that clear with everyone. In addition, the title of my book really perfectly reflects my philosophy on life, that life is meant to be a fun, exciting adventure. And what could be more fun and exciting than to be a supernatural being in disguise on a covert mission. So, that kind of boils down the title of the book anyway. Can I?
Okay.
Do you mind if I just kind of briefly give you, what my message is in a nutshell?
Sure. I want to get an overview of the book for our listeners. Please do.
Okay, fantastic. So Denise, I believe we're all born into this world as a body and a soul, and both entities are equally important for this adventure. And actually, the way I see birth, I feel like at birth we're being pulled from an invisible world of pure energy, pure spirit, into this world of form. I mean, even doctors will tell you that somewhere between the 22nd and the 30th day, that's after conception, that this spark of life, this energy just appears from nowhere. And, they often refer to it as the heartbeat, but in reality, at the 22nd day after conception, the heart's not even formed. So in my opinion, this spark of life, this is soul, this is spirit entering the body. For those of you who are waiting for the second coming, this is it. This is what I believe is the second coming. There's a mystic, a philosopher. His name was Teilhard de Chardin, and he was actually a Jesuit priest who lived back, 70 or 80 years ago, the early 1900s. And one of his favorite quotes, or one of his famous quotes, was, "We are spiritual beings having human experience." So that's kind of how I believe our life begins on this planet. Anyway, somewhere during our early development, our soul, or our divine part of our nature, voluntarily goes into hibernation. And we kind of develop, Denise, temporary amnesia, and we forget about that divine part of ourselves. And we shouldn't feel guilty. We shouldn't beat ourselves up. This is all part of a master plan. And I totally believe that the universe doesn't make mistakes. And actually, I printed just a short little excerpt from the book that I really think describes this really, really well. And it goes like this. As we transition from the world of spirit to the world of form, we find ourselves in a very strange place. As spiritual beings having this human experience, we feel fear for the first time. Primal fear leads to the creation of our bodyguard, who will become our loyal partner for years to come. Our true self must step aside for this portion of our adventure. This sleeping giant will become a distant memory. This temporary amnesia is necessary during this phase of our journey. The sleeping giant will awaken when the time is right, but for now we have much to learn. So Denise, what I'm saying is forgetting our divine nature is a necessary part of our evolution, but so is remembering. So that's kind of how the book starts, and that leads us into the school of life.
Now, how does your book, Craig, I Am God in Disguise, So Are You, how does it differ from other books in the genre?
Well, the biggest thing, my goal was to simplify and demystify the spiritual path, and I've been a seeker for decades, and I don't know, have you been down that aisle at Barnes & Noble, the one that's entitled Spirituality, Self-Help, Religion?
Yes.
Well, I have personally, for 20 years, I have worn out the carpet in that aisle, and I can't tell you how I've read hundreds of those books, and so many of them are, at least to me, this is just, I can only speak for myself, I found them to be very, very complex. Have you ever read a page in a book and found yourself reading the same page over and over, just trying to absorb, the idea?
Mhm.
Well, I promise you, my book is very, very simple. My goal was to demystify this process. As a matter of fact, as I said, I believe life is meant to be this fun, lighthearted adventure. And if you've noticed, Denise, I've got I think there's 24 or 25. They're comic-like illustrations that are scattered throughout the book. And these illustrations or these comics are just kind of a fun way that help me tell my story. And there's a way, there's a mindset that really helps me stay in this kind of fun and lighthearted way of life. And it kind of goes like this. If you can remember that this universe has been unfolding for over 13.8 billion years, and it's going to continue to unfold whether we like it or not. Think about it. Why not just like it? Why do we keep fighting it when we really have very, very little control? So I don't know if what we do, Denise, is instead of just allowing life to naturally unfold, most of us, including me, we create this long list of preferences, all of our likes and dislikes. And really all we're trying to do is we're trying to control the best we can. We're trying to have some control over our world. And occasionally we get lucky and all the stars align and all of our boxes get checked and we'll have that one really, really awesome day. But all the other days, the other 6 days in the week, we're pretty anxious. We're frustrated. We're angry, and I think that if we will focus on the one thing that we do have control over, and that one thing is how we react to the world. We can't control the world, but we can focus on how we react to the unfolding world. Have you heard that Buddhist doctrine that teaches all of life is suffering? And
no.
They say all of life is suffering, and that suffering is caused by our desires. And that teaching's always made me scratch my head because all human beings have desires. So I saw an interview on TV one day, and it was the Dalai Lama was being interviewed. And he said, maybe it would help. He said, it's true, all humans have desires. He said, maybe it would help if we substitute the word dissatisfaction instead of desire. So that was kind of an aha moment for me, because when I substitute the word dissatisfaction, all of life is suffering caused by our dissatisfaction, that made a little bit more sense. So if you think about it, what are we dissatisfied with? We're dissatisfied with what is. We are just we're kicking and screaming and fighting, Denise, every single day with this unfolding world. One of my favorite authors is a guy named Michael Singer, and he wrote this great book called Untethered Soul. What he talks about, he says that we should live every moment of every day as if it's a magnificent surprise party. And he says live like, have a childlike joy and excitement and wonder for what's coming next. And my wife and I, we went and saw him speak in person. He gave a little talk about his book, and when he talked about having this kind of surprise party, life, my wife and I looked at each other on our drive home, and we're like, "Hey, let's try it. Let's try to live life." No. So I'm not kidding. So we had this little inside joke between the two of us, and we still, to this day, this was a year and a half ago. To this day, we still do it. And when things are unfolding, especially during challenging times, when things happen that we can say are bad or things we didn't really expect, it's our inside joke. We race to see who's going to be the first one to yell surprise. And don't get me wrong, Denise. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. I mean, sometimes we're laughing, but sometimes we're crying. And I've had people ask, okay, so that means you're submissive, or does that mean you're passive? And really, the opposite is true. When you're coming from a place where you're not attached to one specific outcome, when you're coming from that place where you're just waiting for life to unfold, and you've got this childlike joy and wonder, and you're not attached to a specific outcome, that is a powerful place to be in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm. But and this I was going to ask you. So if we're spirit, and why would we? You answered it partly when you said, the giant has to. We have to remember, but almost for some reason feel separate. I don't think that's a need. I actually think we're supposed to be healing that separation, that belief, because it's not real. But why would we, if we're spirit? Why would we? And maybe none of us has the answer to this question. But why would we come into this world where there already are in this world by the time we get here? There are rules set up. There are traditions set up. And it was, I can't think of his name right now. He passed, Wayne Dyer. He said, to really get to where you want to be, if a dream born in you, you just notice it maybe when you're a kid. There's this dream to be, to paint, to do whatever. There's just this dream, and you can't get rid of it no matter what. But we come into this world, like he said, to achieve that dream, you're going to have to leave your tribe. And when you go out to try to leave your tribe or the traditions, the patterns, man, are you resistant? So we come into a world that there's already this set up. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what you should do. If you have something birthed in you to do something different, like Abraham in the scriptures, are you ever going to hit a wall? But if we are then spirit, and this is the case here when we come into this world, we have to go to school. And we have to go to school for this long, and we have to take these classes. We have to work these type of jobs. We have to pay bills. We have to buy a mortgage. Why would we come into this world? And you're saying the surprise, just to do something that billions of us have already done, and it's not brought anybody like an eternal joy. Why would we keep doing that?
Right. Well, that's a great question. My original motivation for writing this book, Denise, was really to share with my kids some of these life experiences, some of the good, the bad, the ugly, and these aha moments. And I'm going to circle around and answer that question, because that question you're asking is a huge one. And I kind of want to tell you how I got to that point and to where I had that aha moment. So my original intention was to just share with my kids some of my life experiences. And I don't know, maybe all parents feel this way at some point. Why should my kids have to go through the same crap, the same drama and turmoil and pain and suffering struggles that I went through? So, as I've already said, I've been a seeker on this journey for decades. and I've been journaling for many, many, many years. So I pulled out my dusty box of journals, and I decided I was just going to start this project of trying to organize and put into some chronological order, these experiences, so I could, share some of this wisdom with them. And I kid you not, it was around the 6-month mark when I kind of got done with the first draft of the manuscript. And when I got done reading it, Denise, it was no joke. It was like somebody gave me a secret treasure map. And the joke though is this map was in a puzzle form, and those pieces were given to me over decades. And the exciting part, I was excited and terrified at this discovery. The exciting part was because now I had it. This puzzle was put together. I mean, it was like I solved that big cosmic riddle, the one, what's the meaning of life? And I think that's the question that you're asking, and that I'm gonna try to double back to in a minute, because I honestly feel like I've solved that riddle. But when I stepped back and I looked at this puzzle that was finally put together, I knew in my heart that I couldn't just keep this. My mission or my intention quickly evolved, I guess is what I'm trying to say. No longer was this going to be something that I was just going to share with me and my kids. The reason it was terrifying, Denise, well, really twofold. Number one, here is something that I'm writing that is very, very personal and private, something I intended to be just for my kids only. By the way, my kids are not children. They're grown adults. I don't want to lead anyone to believe this is a children's book. But here's something that's very personal and very private, and I now knew that it was going to be something bigger. I was going to make this into a book, and I was going to share it with the world. And, for example, I knew someday that I was going to be on the phone with you, for example, talking about this to a bunch of strangers. And, to be honest with you, that thought is still a little bit terrifying to me right now. So, to be vulnerable and to kind of wear your heart on your sleeve is kind of scary. So my intention and my mission has quickly changed, and I kind of feel like I kind of look at myself as a spiritual activist right now. My goal is to get this message out into the world. As I said early when we started talking, I think we would all agree that we need more awakened people on this planet now. So whether you're brand new on this journey and you're just exploring these ideas for the first time, maybe my message can shed some light on this path for you. If you've been a seeker for decades, maybe these insights that I spell out will just give you a new way to look at things. Or heck, if even better, if I'm preaching to the choir, if your listeners, Denise, have been on this path for a long time, and they've already discovered their divine nature, and they've already been on this path, well, that's fantastic, because we need to all work together. We need to inspire others on this path. So if I'm preaching to the choir, I need your help. But finally, to answer that question, that cosmic riddle, I believe that we all share the same purpose in life. And this should be a great relief to a lot of people, because I've gone to a lot of workshops and I've heard a lot of people be frustrated. What's my purpose? I don't know what my purpose is in life. I believe that all events, and this is that cosmic riddle I was telling you about, I believe that all events, all experiences in our life are designed to lead us to discovery, to that point where we finally look within and we rediscover, we reconnect with that divine part of our nature. And remember I said in the beginning that divine part of ourselves kind of goes into hibernation for a while?
Mm-hmm.
It has to, Denise, because if we're going to go out into the school of life, we need to be single-minded. We need to be focused on learning what it means to be human. You know, our survival depends on it. And if we were aware in those early stages of that divine part of ourselves, if we would have known in those early stages that, you know, we were the prince or the princess, that we were born into royalty, that, you know, divinity was our birthright, heck, we would have locked our bedroom doors and we'd never come out. I mean, you know, we would be down on our knees praying, take me back, I want to come home. So I really believe that forgetting that divine part of our nature was necessary, but rediscovering. So all events in life are to lead us back to discovery, and then being aware of that divine part of ourselves is not enough. We literally have to surrender to that part of our nature. We need to kind of put our hand on our chest and turn our gaze within and literally say, I mean, this isn't some hocus pocus, you know, idea. I use this affirmation every day, Denise. I put my hand on my chest and I turn my gaze within and I say, I devote myself to you. I surrender. And, you know, this is just part of my, call it meditation, call it prayer, whatever you want. But you are turning over the controls to that higher part of yourself. You know, the part that's been just, I call it in the book, the sleeping giant, who's been just patiently waiting to be discovered. And then last but not least, again, we all share the same purpose, to discover, to surrender, and then the last stage is to inspire. And what I mean by that is, after you discover and surrender, the sky is not going to open up and just suck you up into the sky. As cool as that might be, that's not going to happen. After you discover and surrender, we've got work to do. And this is where the fun begins. This is where the magic begins. And this is why I say in the book title, You Are God in Disguise. We are on a covert mission, and we get to inspire others on this path. And the reason I say in disguise or on a covert mission is because the fact is, Denise, not everybody is going to be like you and is going to want to start a podcast or write a book, you know, talking about love and talking about, you know, your divine nature, or, you know, coming on the air and talking about the spiritual path. You know, it's scary. You know, it's a very vulnerable place to be. However, you could be on a covert mission. I mean, can you imagine if we had millions of people in disguise on a covert mission? You know, and it starts, you know, at the dinner table. It starts, you know, in your house, under your roof. You can lead by example. And trust me, Denise, when you start to change, people are always watching you, especially when they start to see positive changes happening in you. So it happens first at home, and that could spread to your neighbors, to your friends, to your extended family. That can extend to your family, or to your community rather, and then outward, you know, into bigger and bigger circles. It's kind of like throwing a pebble into the pond, you know, that circle of influence. So that's why I say you're God in disguise, and you get to be on this covert mission in disguise. So yes, you go out into this world like Wayne Dyer who I love, Wayne Dyer. He was one of my favorite authors who passed away a few years ago. So you go out into the world, and you it's kind of like you're in disguise, and you go through your normal actions. You go to your job. I don't want everyone running off and hiding in a church or an ashram or becoming a monk. We need you here in this world right now. So go to your job, go to your workplace, and be in disguise and be this person who is spreading this, high vibration, this loving energy to others. And, that's the message. And I'm very specific in the book about different ways of doing that.
And thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask you, we have about 10 minutes left in the show, but what is the epic battle? You talk about the epic battle in the book, and is there a time in our physical experience when this battle generally kicks off, and are there signs that we know we're actually engaged in this epic battle?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, that was the hardest stage in this development. I talk about all of us, that, I feel like I've solved that cosmic riddle where, our purpose is to discover, surrender, and then inspire. Well, unfortunately, the phase between discovery and surrender, to get from discovery to surrender, Denise, is where the epic battle lies. And it's so funny. If I can just tell a brief little personal story, when I first made the discovery, of that divine part of my nature, when I discovered that sleeping giant, or the soul, the spirit, call it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. I was about 32 years old, and I had met some friends who were kind of into the spirituality. They went to kind of a new agey type of a church, and they were into meditation and different stuff that I thought at the time was really weird. And a couple of them had given me books on meditation. And you know what? If you're not ready for that message, you will just totally shut it off, because this is not an intellectual journey. You could read all the books in that self-help section of the bookstore, and you will not be any further along, and that includes my book. What I'm hoping is my book might just shed some light on these different steps, so you might walk a little bit quicker. But anyway, so just one day, the school of life was doing its job, and it was really, really beating me up, wearing me down. Another failed relationship. Physically, I was feeling sick and frustrated and stressed out. As I confessed, I was using and abusing drugs and alcohol. I was trying to numb myself from just the pains of daily life. And I literally put my head in my hands and just kind of said, oh my God, are you kidding me? Is there more to life than this? And that is, Denise, that's the school of life doing its job. Everything is unfolding perfectly. And that's when I say, in a mystical way, pain and suffering is good. It's all intended to lead us to that moment. And when I asked that question, it was like magical words. When I said, oh my God, is there more to life than this? It was like that woke up that sleeping giant that I keep talking about, that spirit, that soul that was just patiently waiting within. And I don't know, it was just the best feeling in the world. Literally, it's a feeling in the pit of your stomach. I opened up the drawer where I had those books that I could care less about the day before and the year before, for that matter. The books that, were talking about how to meditate. And I tried it for the first time, and I really, really liked it. It gave me a certain peace of mind. I just started listening and calmed my mind a little bit. I listened and did some deep breathing exercises that were explained in these books. And that first weekend that I want to say I made this discovery that I was no longer alone, that I kind of had this partner within, I really felt like I had made it. I felt like I was an enlightened man and I was on the top of the mountain. And it didn't take long. Within about 24, maybe 48 hours, I got pulled back to reality, and my bodyguard or my ego, whatever you want to call it, my separate self, the part of me that's been with me for those first 32 years, quickly came to the surface and said, hey, wait 1 second. While you were getting all new agey and meditating and discovering your new friends, I was here all along. So that's the epic battle, Denise. That's where this bodyguard, this human part of yourself, kind of doesn't want to give up control. He doesn't want to surrender. He's not ready to surrender to that higher part of yourself that you just discovered. And I'm embarrassed to say that I was stuck in that epic battle for about 20 years. And one of the reasons I wrote this book is I didn't want my kids to be stuck for 20 years. I mean, I learned a lot of stuff, and I would love to teach people how to go from discovery to surrender quickly, because you can't skip any stages. But like I said, I can probably help you get there quicker. And, I've identified a few of the reasons why we resist surrender. And for me, the biggest one was just fear of change. I don't know, it's kind of scary to just jump headfirst into something new like that. My self-talk, and maybe you can relate to this, Denise, my self-talk for those 20 years during that epic battle was kind of like this. I would say to myself, yeah, you know what, life can be a struggle, it's kind of painful, but it's safe, it's predictable. And, that's what I kept telling myself. And, it's kind of sad. When did we become so complacent as human beings? We become comfortable with our discomfort. Life is not meant, that's BS. Life was not meant to be pain and struggle. It really is. I swear to God, now that I'm on the other side looking back, life is meant to be this joyous, blissful place, and I have never been so at ease and content, and I'm hoping to share that path with others. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
we thank you. I could go. I love what you're sharing, but we're coming to near the end of the hour. I love everything that you shared in the show. But before we go, I definitely want to ask you about this. Can you tell us about water.org? I see you're donating like 100% of the ebook proceeds to water.org. Why did you choose water.org?
I am so glad you reminded me of that, because oftentimes we will run out of time talking on these shows, and I forget to mention them. I researched a lot of organizations, and as you can imagine, there's tons of worthy causes out there that donate food, shelter, clothing to those in need. But there's times where charity alone is not enough, and water.org is so awesome. It reminds me of that old quote from the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, who says you can give a man a fish and you'll feed him for a day, but if you teach a man how to fish, you'll feed him for a lifetime. And water.org, they're not just donating water. They go into these communities, into these villages, and with their resources, they're helping people get water filtration systems and plumbing and wells. They help build, bathrooms. I mean, I hate to say in the year 2020 that people still don't have safe drinking water and, safe places to use the bathroom. And that's what they're doing. And they're really, really empowering women, because in a lot of these communities, it's the women who are responsible for going out and looking for water. And it might be an all-day journey down to the river, and they're in dangerous situations on their trip back and forth to the water source. So to have a water well in their town, in their community, is just life-changing for them. And that's what water.org does. So, yes, 100% of my ebook proceeds is going to them, and they do great things in the world.
And thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I'm sure our listeners so enjoyed you here this morning. We have just been so blessed to have Craig Kolvavo here with us on Off the Shelf. He is the co-founder of AwesOM Life. It's a program that he started with his wife, Amy, and he is also the author of the book, I Am God in Disguise, So Are You, and he is a supporter where he's given 100% of his ebook proceeds to water.org, which we just discussed. And water.org is an organization that was founded 25 years ago by actor Matt Damon and Gary White to bring safe water and sanitation solutions to global communities. I really encourage you to visit Craig online at AwesOMLife.com. And correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, is AwesOMLife.com, or is it AWESOME?
No. So when you see my logo, you'll understand there's no E at the end of awesome. I kind of take the two letters OM, like the Om symbol, like you use in that. So when you see my logo, it kind of looks like the Om symbol. So although my message is very simple, my website is kind of complicated. Sorry about that.
To AWESOMLIFE, no E off the shelf listeners. Again, AWESOMLIFE.com. Please go out and visit Craig. Again, he's the author of the book, I Am God in Disguise, So Are You. Thank you, Craig. And to our listeners who I saw you guys coming in today. Thank you for being here with us. If you came in midstream or near the end of the show, no worries. After it finishes streaming, you can go back and listen to it in the archives in entirety and share it with others who you think might benefit from the message that Craig is sharing. Thank you again, Craig. To our listeners, as I always tell you, you are awesome. You are amazing. You are incredible. Go out and create a fabulous day for yourself. Craig, I'll shoot you an email when the show finishes streaming. Bye for now.
Thank you, Denise.